Good afternoon, great day. My name is Tiffany. Um, I am always thinking about ways in which we as a collective can stand up against the powers that be. My background is in HR, and I've worked in human resources for about 15 years. As a humanitarian, I felt that me and HR would make a great marriage. Unfortunately, it didn't quite work out that way. What I found was more flaws than true support and protections for employees. The only time I ever seen anything close to protections was when I worked with unions or any kind of group that came together for a common goal. So, what I was thinking about, or what I noticed, is some parallels between police officers and HR. Both are tasked with supporting and protecting people. HR for employees, police for the public. But both frequently become instruments for holding the interests of institutions, its power structures, and the status quo. It's not just cops, it's nurses, doctors, even politicians who would rather be public servants than to be beholden to a system, a power structure that's designed by wealthy elites, corporations, political institutions. Think about a small group of people sitting around a large table, and that's exactly what it is in a corporation. And I've sat at those tables, and to hear the way those people speak about employees is appalling. I can only imagine what's said at tables where elites rule, up there. And let me tell you that, let me tell you something that's very true. I want to reiterate that many people take these positions for the right reasons. They truly do want to be a resource for people. They want to be public servants in their respective fields. So, why are they unable to make that happen? And can HR truly work for employees? And what can we do as a collective to change things so that people would work more for our interest than for special interest? No. HR is supposed to be our support system, right? A team that helps you navigate problems at work, protects your rights, fights for fair treatment. But in reality, that's not what happens. HR is more interested in protecting the company than you. Why? And I'm pretty sure a lot of employees have asked, why is that? Police and HR have a lot in common. Both are supposed to serve and protect. But what happens when politics and power come into play? Think about that. Think about the police. They're meant to safeguard the community, yet we've seen how systemic issues can turn them into tools that protect the elite and maintain the status quo, especially for wealthy, powerful families or corporations. Think of innocent poor who are locked up and the guilty rich who walk free. And every single time that happens, I always hope that people will be outraged enough to demand change. Every single time. HR, at its core, has a similar role. HR is meant to support workers, but it also ends up protecting the company's interests, sometimes at the expense of the very people it's supposed to help. So, why? Why is that? Because both police and HR are deeply embedded with systems that uphold existing power structures, wealth, patriarchy, hierarchy. So, in keeping it real, HR is paid and hired by the company. So their job ends up being to protect the company and making the company happy. That includes everything from hiring, firing, managing grievances, even disciplining workers. Now, that part isn't inherently bad. It's just that when HR's interests are aligned with the company, workers pretty much lose out. Think about your own experience: lateness, wrongful terminations, unfair policies, unfair policies. And let me tell you something that happens behind the scenes. When you are a person in HR and you know that you are tasked with implementing an unfair policy to keep your job. Imagine how you would feel if that was your job to implement something that you know is unfair, but you have to do it in order to keep your job. Especially if you're a person with a conscience and your true desire is to be a public servant. Imagine how you would be made to feel. And also note that you're a fellow employee. That's the systemic problem. HR isn't independent, it's part of a corporate machine. So when you try to stand up for yourself, HR's first instinct to protect the company or to keep the company safe, which means silencing you. I know of cases in which the manager was absolutely wrong, where a manager was accused of abuse, and guess who ended up being terminated? It wasn't the manager. So let me tell you what happened behind the scenes. We know that we have a manager or even an employee that's in the wrong, but the company protects them anyway, right? So, in my own personal experience, there was a salesperson who spoke to people around him in a very disrespectful way. Some things that came out of that man's mouth was appalling. It was egregious, really. The company was very aware, as we in HR got a lot of complaints. His immediate manager got a lot of complaints. Uh, we were well aware. But here's the other side. This salesperson brought a lot of money to the company. HR knew that this guy should be gone. He had been written up several times and he faced disciplinary action. But did his behavior change? No. He brought in a lot of money. He knew he was an asset to the company. He felt invisible. The company cared about numbers. HR cares about employees. That particular group of people, they cared about the employees. They wanted to see the salesperson being disciplined, but their hands were tied because the company saw numbers. They saw that this salesperson brought the company a lot of money, and ultimately, that's what they cared about. And who has the final say? The company, not HR. And so those things really happen behind the scenes. HR wants to be able to wield its power and say, we're not going to put up with this. We're not going to subject employees to being made to feel uncomfortable at work. We have one person that is causing several people to be uncomfortable, unsafe at work. And we need to nip this. And we have the tools to do that. But those tools were removed. HR was unable to further discipline this person. We were able to take it up to a certain level, short of doing what HR really wanted to do, which was to terminate the person and find someone else that could be just as great of a salesperson that can bring in those kind of numbers for the company. But the company saw it as he's making us money, and that's what we're established for. That's our bottom line. He's making the C-suite and above happy. And if people are uncomfortable with that, well, then that's what it is. Have you ever stopped to think who's working for you? Most of us are told that HR system is there to support us, but the truth is very different. Sometimes it feels like these systems are designed to keep us in line, silenced or powerless. I know it's frustrating. I feel it all the time, every day. I love HR. I love working with people. I love standing up for people who are unable to do it for themselves. I loved those opportunities where I was at the table and I was able to advocate on behalf of another person. There's nothing more fulfilling than that. But I did not like my hands being cuffed those times when I would advocate on behalf of another and I was unable to. It made me feel that I was unable to do my job. And I know it's frustrating, but I would like for you to remember you are powerful beyond measure. Us, united together, we are a force to be reckoned with. And now is the time to organize. Now is the time to stand up, to fight back, because If power is absolutely consolidated, our chances of getting under oppression is right now, it feels as if people have pretty much given up because of what we're witnessing with blatant corruption from the White House down. And these things will remain that way if we stay in this state of defeat. The reason why we have the rights, liberties, freedoms that we enjoyed was due to people standing up and fighting back and not accepting oppression. So, what can be done as an employee or a future employee or for employees that are in the workplace? And as you can see, we are witnessing people getting fired left and right. There's no job security. There's no such thing as investing in a company anymore. People are being treated as if they are disposable. And, but there are things that can be done. Unionizing. Strong labor unions can effectively counterbalance corporate HR and negotiate for worker-friendly policies and protection. Politics and power structures. Now, who are these power structures? Well, at the very tippity top, it's the wealthy elite. They are the billionaires. They're the huge corporations, powerful political families. They control most of the wealth. So it's this tiny group of people, in comparison to the rest of the population, that are controlling the masses. And so then below that is big corporations, banks, and billionaire-owned media. Billionaire-owned media uh, wield enormous influence. They're the ones that are spewing propaganda that we get here in America, where, here in America, it's very hard to find the truth. They are on the side of billionaires because they are billionaires. And mainstream media is owned by a small group of people. And then there's the political class, the politicians and bureaucrats who are influenced and are directly controlled by the wealthy. So they're supposed to be public servants working for the everyday person. They're the ones that's supposed to speak on behalf of those that are unable to do so themselves. And at the very bottom, that's us, the workers, the everyday, ordinary, average, everyday people just trying to survive and fight for our rights and just, seeking what we call the American dream, whatever that might be for you. And so, but with all of that said, we, us, collectively have more power than that group of people. Now, For instance, um, when we all decided that we were going to organize against Disney, within days they kneeled. And when there was an anti-Trump protest, ICE was nowhere to be seen. And so that shows right there that when we organize, when we speak up, when we support our coworkers, our community, real change does happen. And now it's not going to be from one strike. People have sat out and they organize, they went on strike. Sometimes it took a long time, but over time, through persistence and tenacity, we were able to make those changes. And we have a 5-day work week and 8-hour a day work shift. As a result of that, we have minimum wages now. Now, I mentioned a huge hurdle, which is government regulation. It sounds good on paper, but in practice, it could be a nightmare because regulations are supposed to protect us, but too often they create layers of bureaucratic red tape that slows things down and they end up protecting the wrong people. So think about how difficult it is for workers to actually get justice if they can access it at all. The system is often designed to favor corporations and elites who have the resources to navigate endless paperwork and legal hurdles. And that's something that the people do not have. And so that's the reason why we have to fight for ourselves. And this is the reason why we elect people so that they would take care of that for us. But if they're bought by the wealthy, then we're in a situation. Now, to keep it simple, if there is a genuine interest in worker welfare, all a company has to do is prioritize that. That's all they literally have to do. The other things that can be done is alternative funding or external HR involvement. Those things can improve employee advocacy. Um, Now, if we had the government in on it, that would add bureaucratic complexity and it would potentially weaken employer flexibility. But it would be great if HR was somehow paid through some sort of external um, entity instead of the company for which they work, because then HR could be honest with the company and the employee. Thank you for watching.